Championship Grand Prix to take place on this particular circuit, the Nürburgring, hosting the Luxembourg Grand Prix, the European Grand Prix, the German Grand Prix, and now the Eiffel Grand Prix as well. Temperatures pretty cold here at a track that runs alongside, and then got the call to come and replace Lance Stroll. He starts 20th. Valtteri Bottas, a 150th Formula One race start, and he's on pole. Martin Brundle, it's been a good weekend so far for him.
Well deserved as well for his pole position. Teams in Formula One, they love data, they love simulation, they love for everybody, and even if their little fingers get cold on the steering wheel, I'm sure they'll warm them up somehow when they get hacksawing around with that steering wheel, trying to find some grip.
But it's more about the tyres getting a bit too cold, and as they hurtle into turn one, is there the capacity for a bit of carnage down there? Are we going to get a straightforward start or something a bit problematic?
I'd be amazed because although it's not a particularly long run down to the first corner, because the grid's a long way down the
and it's lights out and away we go, and Hamilton gets away well, and Valtteri Bottas tries to cover him off, but he's not got there in time, and Lewis Hamilton on the inside pushes his teammate wide. The two Mercedes scrapping away as they take through turn one, and it looks like Valtteri Bottas regaining that lead from Lewis Hamilton. Max Verstappen in third place ahead of Charles Leclerc. Alex Albon locks up and just avoids Daniel Ricciardo in the Renault. But it's Valtteri Bottas who leads them away over his teammate Lewis Hamilton. Max Verstappen 7/10ths back in third place. Then Leclerc, Ricciardo, Albon, Norris, Perez, Ocon, Sainz and Giovinazzi, who continues his record.
Fly off the road, but it does look as if Leclerc has got Daniel Ricciardo for very good company. Albon was really struggling through the first lap, but seems to have got it back under control now in the Red Bull. And
both AlphaTauris may be struggling a bit with tyre warm-up, because Kevin Magnussen's already got past Pierre Gasly as well, started really getting the better of the starts in terms of the Mercedes battle. Bottas tries to cover him off, Martin, but he's a bit too late to the party.
Yeah, I thought Verstappen was going to look, they run so wide, but nobody could come underneath them. And yeah, I really thought the Mercedes were heading out there to have a little bit of an incident, but not to be. And thankfully for them, and we saw, there we go,
Charles Leclerc was about 2.5 seconds slower than the two Mercedes, as a result of which Daniel Ricciardo, right behind Charles Leclerc, is now thinking, I fancy getting past this Ferrari, and I don't want to get held up because the others are pulling away, and I could get a bit frustrated as they swing the cars through turns 5 and 6. Bottas maintaining that 1.4 second lead out in front, but you can see Ricciardo.
This will be worth one of his massive moves up the inside, because he can get out of there. He can check out from this group and get down the road. I doubt he'll catch the three in front, but he'll have a much better race if he can pass Leclerc quickly.
I got hit badly by some gravel from Kimi, and it's hurting my finger. I don't know. I hope it's not broken. I can't use my left index, basically.
So he's gone off into the gravel, Kimi's gone off into the gravel, has kicked up a load that's hit Romain Grosjean in the hand and the finger as Leclerc locks up going into turn one. This might give Daniel Ricciardo the option now to try the old switcheroo. The instant response with a new fastest lap of his own as well.
But critically, Bottas more than a second ahead, so out of the drag reduction system range.
He is, I think, a little bit closer. Is Daniel Ricciardo. Started 6th the last time we came here to the Nürburgring. Started 6th this afternoon, desperately trying to get 4th place at the moment. Investigation necessary. The stewards have noted that maybe Renault are a bit unhappy about it, but they've decided not to investigate. As Ricciardo, no, he's not going to make a move.
You can actually see the front front tyre off the ground there. Hello, that's an early one.
That's a pit stop for Alex Albon, who was running down in 5th place. The way around turn 2, he is ahead, Daniel Ricciardo. He is in 4th place. Charles Leclerc is trying.
Introducing the FX Pro app, a new way of trading on the go. Keep the market at your fingertips.
Trying to fight it back, but Ricciardo will keep that 4th place, and now he can start to set about getting after Max Verstappen, who's about 16 seconds further up the road. Into 4th place in this race, and 4th is a position he's finished in 3 times already in 2020. Charles Leclerc, having got rid of one big defensive battle, now has Lando Norris right on his tail as well. As we look up to the skies, and in the words of the birthday boy this weekend, Murray Walker, look at that cloud, Ted. Look at that cloud.
And it's coming. You know when it always gets cold and the wind picks up before it starts raining?
Firming around for quite some time. And finally, Ferrari have said we can bring you in to get rid of those tyres. So Leclerc pits, gives Lando Norris some nice clear track ahead, and we can look at the pit stop with a medium compound tyre going on. Pirelli, if it's a two-stop race, soft, medium, soft. That's the way they suggest, and that is Sebastian Vettel sliding around and running at a track down at turn 1. Now, is the rain coming down and making things a little bit greasy? Kevin Magnussen going into turn 1, Sebastian Vettel pitting and going right to the rear of the field and putting the hard compound tyre on. And I don't think, Martin, we've seen anyone use that hard tyre so far this weekend.
Welcome to the weekend, the hard...
Valtteri Bottas, and as I say that, Lewis Hamilton goes past Valtteri Bottas. At the end of the last lap, he'd reduced the arrears by about 0.4 of a second. Hamilton has just swept past Valtteri Bottas and into the lead. And
Verstappen's quicker than the pair of them.
So it was a lock-up here by Bottas.
Yeah, his right front tyre was grained, so this is going to put Lewis right on his tail.
Got past Charles Leclerc, has been putting in some decent times and is ahead of Valtteri Bottas on the track after Bottas made that pit stop.
Yeah,
that is George Russell.
Yeah, his left rear's gone, obviously. Yeah. So it's the suspension, actually, I think, isn't it? It's not just the puncture. It looks to me like he's got left rear suspension issues. We'll see when it comes in.
And Kimi Raikkonen for causing a collision. Meanwhile, out in front, Lewis Hamilton has a 4.2 second lead.
Raining a bit heavier, last sector, last few corners.
Over that man, Max Verstappen. They're a long way clear of Daniel Ricciardo, now running in third, and Valtteri Bottas, who was pitted, the early race leader, now running fourth as Kevin Magnussen comes into the pits.
Tread, so you start to lose temperature and then locking up much more easily. And I have to say, the medium on the right front of Albon there, medium compound tyre, doesn't look that happy. And to prove it, we didn't stop.
And the
Ted on the TV, but you might well be right as well. So we're now back under green conditions, and we're on the green grass.
Yeah, Kvyat goes onto the green. Alex Albon goes past him and takes his front wing out as well. And that is the worst possible place to lose a front wing. If you would have felt a bit of a thud at the rear of his Red Bull and realised that he wasn't. Now, what is happening to Valtteri Bottas?
No power, no power. It's like a limp or something. No power.
This day is
copy that.
This day is going.
Is there any driver defaults? Stand by, we're looking.
This day is going from bad
HPP default 0-1
to worse to extremely concerning for Valtteri.
Sure.
Right, so
box. Slow enough, we're going to retire the car.
And this is not what Valtteri Bottas would have imagined when he pulled back the curtains in his hotel bedroom this morning. We are on lap 18. Completed 18 laps of this Eiffel Grand Prix. He started on Pardo, running 7th at the moment, has pitted. Sainz and Ocon and Perez and Norris ahead of him haven't pitted. Alex Albon did pit early, confirmation from Red Bull that he had a flat spot from the start of the race. When we saw him locking up, that's where that flat spot came from. And the stewards are looking at Alex Albon and Danny Kvyat, and both Mercedes-powered cars. Russell with damage to his car and Bottas with a suspected MGUH problem are out of this race then. Oh, it's been a busy few laps, hasn't it?
He has fair cop there for Kimi. It was entirely his fault, and it's literally taken another driver out of the Grand Prix. So in a way, he's a little bit lucky. It's only 10 seconds.
A few spots of rain still on the end. Down that main straight, looking on the inside to get past Pierre Gasly. Locks up. Gasly has to go wide. And Albon, not for the first time this afternoon, locking up. Has he got another flat spot?
Yeah, you can look how much it's vibrating the car. But and that right front tire we talked about a bit earlier on already looked a little bit ugly on the surface. And I suspect
Aaron with a sort of grumble and a lurch forward as a gearbox just gave up. So yeah, they were looking at whether they might be able to do something in a pit stop, but no, that is terminal, unfortunately, for Esteban Ocon. Poor Esteban. But Kimi Räikkönen, did you say earlier on, he said with that interview with yours, Martin, that he'd said to Rubens, I do this as a hobby, this Formula One game. It's not a very enjoyable one at the moment, is it?
Not working on him because he's got to wait 5 seconds, service penalty. Oh, are they retiring him? Ted Kravitz.
They are retiring him. He's turned the engine off, and that is something we haven't seen. They've decided that that's enough for you, Alex Albon, today. The car's not happy as well. Obviously, he feels that there's an inner gremlin. We'll find out what that is as soon as possible, but they were absolutely sure they weren't going to do
units in that McLaren. They changed it after qualifying. They saw an issue with the power unit, and in the words of Andreas Seidel, when we spoke to him this morning, yeah, can you use that power unit for the rest of the season? No, he went, it's kaput. So the new in the background there, waiting to strike. These two haven't pitted as yet in this race. Neither has Carlos Sainz, and Norris Perez Sainz running 3rd, 4th and 5th at the moment.
This is not normally a car break at this circuit. It's, you know, as long as they're not bouncing too much off the curbs at, say, this chicane, I don't understand why we're seeing so much unreliability. And we're a decent.
Latest move down into turn 1, and Charles Leclerc ahead of the Alpha Tauri. Both winners, of course, at Monza. These two racing drivers, Leclerc last year, and Pierre Gasly for this season as well. Once again, Charles Leclerc actually having a really decent afternoon in a Ferrari that has not been a competitive car, but somehow he's finding a way to make it. There is Nico Hülkenberg and Sergio Perez and Pierre Gasly behind Hülkenberg and ahead of Giovinazzi.
Well, Ricciardo pitted on lap 16, so his tyres will be 14 laps older than those. So it was a no-brainer, as I said at the time, for Hamilton and Verstappen.
This frustrating thing is that mechanically there might not be anything wrong with the engine. It's just the identifying the sensor that's giving you all the trouble.
But Lando can feel something wrong with the engine and the loss of power.
He said no deployment, so he's not getting the extra 160 horsepower, or an element of it anyway, from the battery pack, is what he was talking about in an earlier message. He's just not getting, so you're lugging. It's a bit like a hybrid road car where you haven't plugged it in.
5th place battle seems to have been decided for now as Pierre Gasly pits, drops out of the top 10, and Sebastian Vettel and Kimi Räikkönen can now move up and into more points.
And Lando, default 0-3, default 0-3. We might need to keep using that all race.
Yeah, but it's not doing anything.
And Lando, you're doing a good job in the corners. We see pace is good. You can do this. We'll just have to manage it.
Might nick a championship point or two.
London-born Thai in to retire. Just keeping tabs on what is going on with Lewis Hamilton, leading the race by 5 seconds from Max Verstappen. Little bit of understeer, just a little bit of understeer, but otherwise all right. Little problems for Lewis Hamilton, but insignificant in the grand scheme of things. He's got this one under control.
Power unit problem for Alex Albon. We heard nothing about any potential power unit problems for Alex Albon before he came in and switched off the engine, so maybe it was a sudden thing. Who knows on that. Moves across to force Leclerc down the inside, and that DRS working wonderfully for the Ferrari. Doesn't go too deep into that first corner and takes 4th place back again.
Yeah, Sergio didn't think that one through quite enough. It'd have been better.
And Sergio Perez is going to have to try again. It's a bit like an Abu Dhabi, where if you attack into the first chicane on the back stretch, you're going to be under DRS threat
got it
the next time. So this time he is nicely ahead of Charles Leclerc, but Leclerc will get DRS once more, but he's a little bit further ahead is Sergio Perez. Can Leclerc hang on to him in terms of getting close enough to mount a challenge?
Front wing, stewards don't like to see cars going around with bits flying off them, as Leclerc pits then for Ferrari.
They wait.
So yeah, I think it's come back to your point.
Leclerc's really sticking well to the Ferrari here. Might just have a bit more oomph on the straights as well, and a bit of DRS as they approach the final chicane. Hamilton out in front by 8 seconds now. He was saying there's a bit of graining on his tyres. Verstappen is now starting to lose time behind Lewis Hamilton, which might make that decision for...
Great start, we had a good battle, and there was no way I was going to let it easy for him, so I'm glad I could maintain the lead. Obviously, then later on I had the lockup into turn 1, so I lost the ball early. So and the new tires were starting to feel pretty good. So I had no doubt that I could have carried good pace and probably undercut. But yeah.
What move Red Bull might make in this race next?
Doing a lot of changes on the steering wheel there, wasn't he? Up into turn 10.
It certainly was. Fully 50 seconds at the moment ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, running in the way here, but Charles Leclerc locks up anyway, and that was a lot tighter than it might have been, as Leclerc gets past Vettel, 7th place, ahead of Vettel. So Leclerc ahead of Vettel, ahead of Gasly. There's Nico Hülkenberg in his 3rd race of the season as super sub at Racing Point, who pitted at half race distance in this race and is currently running.
Could it be ink on skin time here? It's looking really good for Danny Rick.
He's got designs on it, as Pierre Gasly's got designs on Sebastian Vettel. Vettel's going to fight this one though, if he can, and they get within a few inches of making contact. Vettel then locks up. Gasly is through and into 8th place. Those hard tyres, are they starting to suffer a little bit now?
Yeah, I don't quite see it the same way as Ted there. I think
Glass passed very easily indeed.
Absolutely.
It's one of the easiest overtakes he's ever had in his career, I think, Nico Hülkenberg there. With the power performance difference between a Mercedes engine and a Ferrari engine, Hülkenberg being helped out by Sebastian Vettel's tyre issues as well.
Yeah, and a lot more drive off the last corner, plus the DRS, plus a slipstream.